If you enjoy the subject matter of these podcasts, then you would definitely enjoy any of the 3 Patreon discussion groups that are available. You can read about these groups by going to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com and clicking the participate button. We also offer a free meditation group every other Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. To learn exact dates, check any of the Infinite Spark of Being socials. There should be a link tree with the information in the profile. This is a community of everyday people who are interested in living with a deeper understanding of spiritual practice and how it can be applied in a practical sense to our everyday lives. So join us. Welcome to the Infinite Spark of Being podcast. My name is Keith Welsh. And in this episode, we will be talking about imagination, transformation, and spiritual practice. I know that I've mentioned this before. Imagination is such an important component to transforming your experience of the human birth, the experience of reality. I'd like to point out that if you can only imagine the worst case scenario, then your mind will only manifest, show you the path to, however you want to put it. It will only show you the route by which the worst case scenario is possible. Why would you find or experience anything else if all you can imagine is the worst? Because if our experience is the mind, our experience of reality is the way that we think, why would anything else happen? I mean, how many people do you know? I mean, obviously not you, I'm sure there's other people, but that the best things can happen, but they will still only complain. They will still, it's like the best thing can happen, but they're really concerned with the best thing ending or what's going to happen when it's over. They can't be present to happiness, joy, anything like that. I mean, obviously no one listening to this podcast would be one of those people. You're all very highly involved, I'm sure, but it's something to look at. But, within Tibetan Buddhism, and I'll only speak for the Karma Kagyu lineage because that's where I have my experience, visualization and imagining certain buildings, scenes, interactions with deities, these visualizations are very detailed because imagination, the imaging faculty, is extremely important. To practice imagining, to spend time imagining, changing the picture in your mind. I can't tell you how many grief and loss sessions I did with people over the years where, the only way they can see their loved one in their mind, within their imagination, is dying in a hospital bed. After some minutes of, this thing that I do with people, they can't see the person sick in the bed. Their mind only conjures up the person smiling. They might be laying in that bed, but they're smiling and they look alive and happy. When that happens, the grief subsides. Things feel different in the body. When you imagine something bad that happened to you in the past, your nervous system reacts to it. When you imagine something good that happened to you in the past, your nervous system reacts to it. If you can only imagine the worst case scenario, your nervous system is reacting to it. And you, if you are unskilled, will do things because of that. This is where we get the idea that meditation is the most crucial component of a spiritual practice. Everyone from Aleister Crowley to the Dalai Lama understand this. It is huge. Why? Because that is where we create the natural spaciousness, where we get to experience the natural spaciousness, the natural emptiness of the human mind that gives us a chance to engage in metacognition, to engage in thinking about thinking, which then allows us to think about things in a more skillful way. It allows us to rearrange the picture in our head and think about it differently. Imagine something beautiful happening to you instead of what you think is usually happening, which is usually horrible, negativity, difficulty, and hardship. When you can only imagine that, then the mind only finds the route by which that is possible. A way to look at it that I imagine when I say the field of reality or the plane of reality is just a field where with infinite possibilities. I see just this plane. Imagine a plane like a surface, and it's covered in a grid of lights or poles or pegs or whatever. But there is and you're trying to get to the other side. And you can you can go straight. If you're skillful enough, you just go straight. If you're not, then you go from this thing to this thing to this thing to this thing. It might lead you off the side. It might lead you to the left, lead you to the right. Everyone goes to up the same mountain. The end is the same for everybody. It's death. So your experience of this plane, of this Leela, is the mind, your experience of it. It all ends the same for everybody. It ends in death. How you experience the death and how the death happens, that's something else. But these things are going to happen. Bad things, difficult things. Difficulty is going to occur. Old age, sickness, death are going to happen to everyone. So what we can really work with is the mind to experience that differently. A lot of that is our imagination. Can we imagine a better scenario? So once we begin to imagine things, then we start to find, the mind defines the possibility, the positivity, the good fortune, the grace. I've been through a lot this year, and I saw it at the beginning when things started to, we'll say, change. I am fortunate enough that I am well practiced enough, and I've been doing this long enough that I could create the space in my mind to go, okay, now we get to put our money where our mouth is. And if you can pull it off in the face of this, then you have really done something. And I did, and it has been amazing. It hasn't been easy, but nothing good is easy, right? You don't get better through ease and slothfulness and laziness. It's interesting. I was running early this morning, and I was thinking about this, that I haven't always been a runner. Been fairly active, surfing, jiu-jitsu, skateboarding, things like that, my whole life. But I've been fat twice in my life. 2 incarnations I've been big boy. At one point 270. Right now I'm somewhere in the 190, high 190s. If I eat too much oatmeal, 200 even. I'm in good shape. Very active. What I was thinking about on this run was I didn't cultivate a spiritual practice because I was prone to athletics as a child and this and that, and so I'm automatically very disciplined. I'm not. Not naturally disciplined. I became disciplined. And I'll say this, spiritual practice taught me to exercise. So when we look at the word practice, it's what we're practiced at. And we practice at something long enough to where we become good at it. Or you could say, through practice, this thing that you're practicing becomes second nature. So if you're practiced at finding excuses not to do the right thing, if you're practiced at doing dumb shit, we'll say, that's a spiritual term. That, I don't know what it is in Sanskrit, what dumb shit is in Sanskrit, but dumb shit, unskillfulness. If you're practiced at that, then you experience life through the lens of dumb shit. If you are well practiced at being graceful, being nice, being helpful, being compassionate, then you experience life through that lens. If you are practiced at equanimity and meditation and things like that, then you experience that. So what you are practiced at is what you experience. So back to how spiritual practice allowed me to, run more and do things to help my body heal because really, like, I was healing from being overweight. When you're overweight, and I know no one wants to hear this because it's, but when you're overweight, you are hurting your body. Your body's not meant to function that way. If your body is a temple, stop treating it like a fucking septic tank. It's not going to work well. And I know Lama Losan always stressed, fitness and being healthy because it allowed you to practice well. And I know Sharon Salzberg, I'm familiar with who she is. I don't know what her personal life is like. I know that she's really great at writing books, and people are very great at pulling quotes from those books and sharing them on social media. I don't know what her practice is like. I've never read a Sharon Salzberg book. I don't know that I ever will. I don't really care to. But I look at someone like Roshi Joan Halifax. That's interesting. I know what her practice is. This sounds really shitty, but bear with me. I was treating my body poorly, and while I was overweight, japa and chanting Hare Krishna has been in my life for 28 years now. There's days, and this sounds crazy, but unless you actually have a chanting practice, you won't understand this, but you just don't want to. It takes too long. I don't feel like it. It feels tiring to just chant. It's just like, I'm not feeling it. I don't want to sit in meditation. I'm too anxious. My mind's racing. I don't want to sit in meditation. Now, the ability to do that anyway, because you know that it is the right thing and the beneficial thing long term, because you want to wake up, sincerely want to wake up, not just, this class of people, these folks, some of you are guilty of this, I'm sure. You love following flowery speech with no, action behind it. You don't want to sit in meditation. You just want to read about how awesome it would be. And when I say read about it, I just mean on TikTok and Instagram. You'd rather read a book about it rather than do it. It's like, I just want to read this book first about it so I really know what I'm doing here. Man, if I had a teacher, then I would, all these excuses. But just doing japa, regardless of how I felt about it, and doing it for the love of Krishna, because I know it would make God happy. If God is order and love, and God is me, then the piece of me that is order and love will benefit from me doing this thing. A lot of you, when you become very sick, you're very quick to take your antibiotics and do that. That's fine. But the day you take it, you don't instantly feel better. You have to take the whole packet of pills, right? You got to go through the whole thing. Was it a Z-Pack or whatever it's called? So you got to go through all of that. And you do it because you feel so bad, right? You feel so bad and you want relief. So it's like, fuck it, I'll just take this. And sometimes you do it and you know that the antibiotic's not good for you, the med's not good for you, I'll figure it out, but I feel so bad, I'll do anything to feel better. Will you? Will you do anything to feel better? Life is hard and it's a drag and it's shitty and fucking Trump and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's a talking skeleton and blah, 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 and the Gaza Strip's fucked up and, all this stuff. And the guy in front of me fucking will turn his radio down and the kids won't stay off my ferns. Okay, will you do the work? Will you take the medicine? This is part of the medicine Buddha practice, which is what I love, the allegory of the medicine Buddha. If you believe that you would benefit from working with me one-on-one on grief and loss, anxiety, or ruminating thinking, then shoot me an email or direct message. Or if you're interested in learning about meditation and how it can transform your reality and change your life, then again, please reach out through email or direct message. Thank you. Will you take the medicine? Will you take the medicine of mantra? Will you take the medicine of a hatha yoga practice? Will you take the medicine of whatever the thing is? Will you take the medicine? So I learned to take the medicine, not because of how it makes me feel in the moment, because sometimes it doesn't make me feel good. I'm not interested. But I will take the medicine because I know that later on I will feel very good and I will feel better than I do right now. And right now I don't feel good, but this thing will eventually pay off. If you don't have that thing of that piece of dedication because it eventually pays off, I'm not sure what to do. But I loved Krishna enough and I believed in that enough that I would just do it anyway. And then that rolled over into my practice as a Buddhist, as somebody who was following the Karma Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. And so, okay, these visualizations are very difficult, but if I just do this and I work at it, my imagination will get stronger. And you're taught to do these visualizations because when you die, you'll go to a special place and you gotta be able to imagine it. Well, it turns out it works in other ways. I'm able to imagine the best case scenario. And I land somewhere around that every time. So what it taught me was that when I finally felt bad enough in my meat suit, when I finally got to a place where I was holding my breath to tie my shoes, so then I had to switch to wearing Crocs or slip-on shoes, it got to a place like, all right, if I do this thing, it'll pay off. So you go walk. Do you want to walk 6 miles? No, I want to walk 3. Well, if you walk 6, and then it was running, this hurts, because I run barefoot. I don't run barefoot in grass, I run barefoot on asphalt. And not because I'm a tough guy, but because it works best for me. I also like the aspect of this hurts. You said you were going to do it, finish it. The other day I went for a run, and it was too hot. The ground was way too hot, but I started jogging away from my car. My feet were on fire, and I was like, well, you mapped out a 4-mile run. You going to do it? Well, I could hurt me. I'm having this conversation in my head. It's like, no, this is what we do. We finish it. We finish things. We dedicate ourselves to it, finish it. And then there's times that I was like, well, I mean, if I could run in the grass. Nope, that's not what we do. Because if you don't, you won't. Remember that. If you don't, you won't. If you don't meditate, you won't meditate. If you don't chant, you won't chant. If you don't wake up, you won't wake up. So practice. What are you practiced at? Are you practiced at giving up? Are you practiced at finding the easy way out? How you do one thing is how you do a lot of things. And that's the truth. To embrace my 48-year-old Generation X-ness, how you do one thing is how you do a lot of things. If you do this, it's like, well, I'm not very dedicated in this, but I'm very dedicated. No, you're not. You think you are. You think you're dedicated in that thing, but you're not. You got another gear. You just haven't found it yet. This is why, and this isn't a knock against Ram Dass. I have a Be Here Now tattoo. I cried harder when Ram Dass died than when my own dad died. Ram Dass changed my life. Ram Dass changed your life, even if you don't know who he is. He changed our culture. Him and Madame Helena Petrova Blavatsky changed Western spirituality. If you don't know who Blavatsky was, do some homework, especially if you go to a yoga class even semi-regularly. You go to that because of her, and Aleister Crowley. And nobody wants to talk about that. But, these two overweight charlatans are why we're here. And so you got to have them. They're the tricksters. Remember, the trickster element was a big part of human culture. The one that sows a little bit of chaos and craziness. And they were worshipped like Pan. But then the Christians came along and said, that's the devil. But the reality is you have to have a little bit of chaos and a little bit of order. It's what the yin and yang sign is. It's what all of these systems find that some of the greatest teachers are absolutely chaotic, crazy people. But Ram Dass appeals to a lot of people because it's flowery words and ideas, but it's never a method. And you gotta have a method. But you also need the flowery speech. If you're not prone to finding a method and dedicating to a method, then the flowery speech isn't really going to lead you anywhere. He's going to talk about the soul and how you're actually this and that, and you're going to feel like an indigo baby starseed, which is great because your day-to-day life is shit and you hate it. So this gets to give you some sort of I'm very special, it turns out. And if I carry this clear stone in my pocket long enough, the world will work out for me. There has to be a practice, there has to be a method. And in this culture where things go very quickly, it's easier to read a meme or a quote than it is to finish the entire book and put a practice into place. To me, the king of that is Eckhart Tolle, who I think is exhausting. I don't know if it's just the constant wearing of vests or his accent, but you going, you are not your thoughts. Oh, fucking great, man. Thank you. Here's the problem. I still have them. So the practice, well, what someone like Aleister Crowley even understood was that meditation has to be in the stew, because that creates the space that allows you to notice that the picture in your head is dog shit. The thought that you're experiencing is dog shit, and you need to change it. Because these crappy, unskillful images and unskillful ways of thinking are what you've been doing. You're practiced at that. Now we're going to practice something else. So we use metacognition thanks to meditation, and we think about our thinking, and we decide to change it. Now, these changes aren't easy because we're well practiced at being unskillful. I mean, that's what a thought is. It's the results of a neural process, and that neural process occurs the same way every time because you act the same way every time. You do the same thing every time. You don't create new behaviors that would then change your thought, or new thoughts that change your behaviors that then result in some healing. That's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what your therapist is supposed to be doing with you. But instead you have a rent-a-friend who doesn't do anything with you. They just know all of your dirty little secrets, but they don't give you a practice that results in behaviors that would result in a different way of thinking, that would result in more skillful behaviors, that then results in some sort of therapeutic, a healing that would occur. Instead, it's a lot of, well, how did it make you feel when your dad called you a little pig? So practice. Imagination. And when we practice imagining a different way of life, a different world, a different reaction, a different way we think, then what we experience is a transformation in our reality. Now, it's something you need to understand about this. This is like turning a cruise ship around. It's not going to turn on a dime. There's little degrees. One of the things that I learned, one of my biggest life lessons I learned grappling within jiu-jitsu, is that it's not always about this big sweeping motion that turns the tide in your favor. It's about tiny gains. Sometimes it's just getting your foot free, getting your hand free, getting the pressure off of your carotid arteries so you can stay conscious a little while longer to figure this out. It's about tiny gains. Small, incremental changes in your life will lead you in a different place. Let's say you have two parallel lines, right? Two marbles, right? Let's say there's two marbles and they're going parallel, they're side by side, but one is making like a 1 degree variation. It's like dipping off 1 degree, 1 degree. These two marbles are going to end up in completely different places because of the small incremental changes. If you can't make small incremental changes in your life, in your thinking, in what you're doing, and what you're eating, and what you're talking about, and what you're watching, this isn't going to work. There isn't a magical button you can push. You can buy all the pink quartz in that goofy shop downtown and fill your fucking pockets with it, wash it under moonlight, and sleep with it under your pillows. Your life is not going to change. Your vibe isn't going to change. You have to have practice. Otherwise, these spiritual leaders would just tell you to put a pink quartz in your pocket. Oh, stand on your head. That'll fix it. It's not going to fix it. Might it help? Sure. I believe in ritual. I believe in belief. I believe in non-quantifiable thought exercises that eventually change your life. I believe in that stuff. You have to start with a belief before you can know. If you act as if and pretend long enough, the universe will prove it to you and you'll start to see it. Now, the real problem is, can you just accept your experience of what you're experiencing and without needing everybody else to experience it too? You know, it's one of the things that, a lot of people have prescribed over the years. Act as if. You know, there's this therapist who would deal with people who believe they're possessed. And this therapist would entertain it, say, okay, yes, you are possessed by a demon, let's go to a priest. They'd perform an exorcism and the person's life would change. Correlation doesn't equal causation. What it does mean is this person believed enough. These affirmations, prayers, and mantras, these practices, you're already doing it. Think about it. Like I said earlier, you're well practiced at unskillful behavior. So you move through the world in this unskillful way. So unskillful things happen and you reap what you sow. You're already doing it. You recite to yourself, the world is shit, I'm unlovable. The world is shit and I am unlovable. The world is shit and I am unlovable. How do I know? Because I've done it. And the next thing you know, I was living in a shitty world. I felt unlovable and I was experiencing the world as an unlovable person, which is horrible. But, you start these affirmations that you can poo-poo and whatever, and mantras don't work and prayer doesn't work. Okay. You're doing it now and it seems to be working great. No, but you understand, I have objective proof that, nope, you're full of shit. You don't have any objective proof. You have your experience, which is wildly subjective. For something to be objectively true, it cannot involve opinions, preferences, or tastes. For something to be subjectively true, it involves opinions, preferences, and tastes. No, but objectively, this is really bad. Not for the guy on the other side. Remember that. Two sides. There's always two sides. Might be the same coin, right? But there's two ways of experiencing that coin. That, to me, is spiritual practice. Is that it's the yin and yang symbol, right? It's not the dark side or the light side, it's the space in between. That's why Buddhism was called the middle way. It's not too tight, it's not too loose. It's not too orderly. It's not too chaotic. It's right in the middle. That's life. You know? So, imagination, very important. If you can't imagine something better, why would your mind find the route to something better? Why would your world transform? And if you're practiced at one way of imagining things, you're practiced at one way of talking about things, one way of thinking about things, then why would you experience anything else? You have to change. If you want a different experience, you're going to have to say things, imagine things, and think about things that are incongruent with the way that you look at the world now. Period. Everything is weird until it's not. Everything is hard until it's not. It's all strange until it's not, for better or worse. Weird, unskillful shit relationships were strange to you until they weren't. That bad relationship is your normal. And that healthy relationship was strange and you couldn't maintain it because you weren't practiced at it. You were practiced at chaos. The mind will always choose the mind will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. We've all seen the meme, right? Do something else. Do the other thing. It's going to be hard until it's not. Remember that. And then one day, that skillful way of imagining, that skillful way of thinking, that skillful way of speaking will be your normal way of being in the world. Remember that. That's it. I love you. I love you. I love you. Bye. If you enjoy this content and would like to support the ongoing creation of this content, go to the website, theinfinitesparkofbeing.com, and explore the many ways to do that, such as the shop button, which takes you to the bookstore, as well as the apparel store. Also, click the about button, read a little bit about me, see what I have to offer you. And don't forget to check out the Patreon tiers if you'd like to join a spiritual community of everyday people with not so everyday interests. Go ahead and check out the participate button on that website. Also, do not forget, we now have a free meditation group every other Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you want to know more about that, check out any of the Infinite Spark of Being social media pages. There's a link tree there with a button. So see you then.